Hey everybody, welcome to Millennia. And this is not like a lot of the other Millennia videos that you see out there in the sense that they're saying, hey, look at the game, here's my Let's Play, let's go through every detail of the game, let's go through and talk about, each of the ages, all of those kinds of things. This is just more of a quick, short video on my first impressions after a few hours in the game, playing through my first real session. I played a bit in the early access related parts of things and got a good idea of the game and everything. There's been a lot of talk out there about, how the graphics aren't great, or this, isn't great, or that isn't great, or how this compares to Civilization 6, which I find, infinitely hilarious because you should probably try and compare this to Civilization 1, which absolutely no one remembers anymore. At best, people remember things from Civilization 2 on. So because, this is a first time, game. And yeah, they're building on the shoulders of giants in the sense that, lots of other great games exist out there and have come out. Even we've kind of had a renaissance of, games in the last, few years, around Humankind and Old World and, really great, 4X games, which, I think also in the 21st century, criticism is the way to go. So everybody is constantly, instead of playing the game for like hours, like we would in ages past, where we would get the game and we would be at home by ourselves, and so we would play it for a long time, and then we would bump into somebody where we would talk about it, or things like that. So now, of course, it's like you've got reviewers, and I won't name names, but you can read some of the reviews out there where it's clear that they loaded up the game, played for 5 hours, and wrote a review, which is, for this kind of game, ridiculous. You have to play this game for days before you're going to understand how it works, how you're going to understand the key parts of it, how you're even going to be able to compare this to other kinds of games. The depth of play in this game is crazy compared to especially action games or things like Dragon's Dogma 2 or something like that, where you're running around hacking and slashing with a sword. Building complex supply chains in the Middle Ages around metals manufacturing is a lot different than casting another spell or swinging another sword. And so understanding how all of the different domains and structures work, how research and culture works, all of those are hours of explainer videos to kind of even go through how those things work. So again, this is going to be a short video. The goal here is really just to kind of talk about my impressions, talk about which parts I thought were cool, which parts were confusing, where I discovered random things, as I went through the playthrough. So thanks for joining us today. As usual, all the stuff, like, subscribe, etc. Also, let me know. I've been trying to decide whether or not to keep my face on the screen. When you start building out, your YouTube content, you're always interested. Do people want to actually see a talking head on the screen, or would you more important to see the game? Right? It's always a question of screen real estate, and I go back and forth, and I see where people position their heads and what size they are and all that kind of stuff. I'd be interested in feedback down below about whether or not you'd rather see more of the game or see more of me as you watch these commentaries. I hate to call them Let's Plays because as most folks know, I don't do Let's Plays per se. I play the game and talk about my impressions on it, and I refer to the masters who can actually do awesome Let's Plays. I'm not the greatest at playing and talking at the same time, so I tend to pick particular things to talk about or particular scenarios, to break things out. So a little different than what other people do. So let's just talk about the interface, to start with. I personally like the interface. I think they took a lot of great, traditional things and brought them into, the traditional ways of viewing 4X games and brought them into the game itself. Fascinating enough, they added some stuff from lots of different, games in terms of how they break down and show things. I like the region breakdown pieces that you see over here. So, in the game itself, you don't really have cities per se, you have regions instead of cities, and these regions consist of a couple of different things. You have your region capitals, which here you can see like Linköping or Sigtuna. That are in here. I'm playing as Sweden and this one, and I'll talk a little bit about how countries and all of those things work as well as you pick those. But then you also have vassals, right? And I've got a couple going on here that are interesting vassals. Some that I just created, some that I conquered, as you might notice, Caesarea from Rome, who has been quite the pain in the butt, being its usual aggressive self, and particularly since he's directly north of me. So my passive mound builders have been having a wonderful time trying to fight off the Roman Empire, which has been awesome in terms of how things work. So your regions are directly under your control. Your vassals are not, but you can do things. Unlike a lot of other games, you can actually do a lot of things to actually influence, the growth of the prosperity, as it's called, of your vassals. And so, and you can do different things in the types of governments that you pick to do those kind of things. On the left, real quickly over here, you also have a set of things. You've got your research, which is as you would expect, how you can do things. A lot of people have been saying that tooltip doesn't do this, tooltip. I think most people just aren't reading the dang tooltips. These tooltips are awesome. I mean, like I'm hovering over research right here, which knowledge is the thing that drives research. And here you can see right off the bat, where's my knowledge coming from, right? And you can see that Linkoping is, giving me the largest amount of research to me. And then it tells you exactly how it works. And then it shows, what's going on in terms of, different areas that have been giving you, the ability here, what you're researching at the moment, which is construction, right? So it's total research cost, and then where I'm getting discounts from other kinds of places. And then it even tells me right here what's going to get unlocked when I actually do that. So I don't have to go back to, look at the actual tech tree to be able to figure that out. Culture, same kind of thing, right? You can see how far it is. You have cultural powers in this game that can give you the ability to do stuff, and it tells you here where it's coming from. It also tells you your minuses, right? Because the more regions you have, the less culture you get to use for yourself because it's powering your regions. You can also even get even more info, than you had. If you want to go straight to the encyclopedia of things, you can go directly into it. So it's, people say there's not enough information or something. I'm like, yeah, I think you're just not paying attention to things. Now, when you get down to domains, these are specific areas that you're going to be doing anything. So government, of course, is generated, so that you can do things. It also, you have a set of domain powers that are connected to this. I'll talk about those in a little bit. Then you've actually got your current type of government that you've got in effect. So right now we're a kingdom, and we'll talk a little bit about how those work as we get into the gameplay kind of things. Exploration, again, another domain that we have here. This is critical for some types of domains that you want to do. They're based around things, all the domains that you can choose as you learn through your national spirits, which are how you define what your country is. Before we get any further, let me just talk about that, for a minute. Interestingly enough, in this game, you don't like pick America or New Zealand or any country, to start with. You actually do pick the name of the country to start with, and you do have some type of things, but actually you build your country as you go, which to me is great. Humankind attempted to do that by having, different nations you would pick, in different waves of things. And other games have tried other ways of doing that. But this one actually because you're picking these national spirits multiple times, 4 times through the, I think it's 4 times. I think it's 4 times throughout the game. You basically get to choose the direction, that your country is going in. So you'll see I picked Mound Builders here. When you start out to choose these things, you can pick very aggressive military, kinds of ways. You can pick technology, knowledge based. You can pick, like God King, kinds of things where you're going to build a lot of monuments and have a lot of construction, and it's basically by these domains. So you can pick a exploration oriented kind of country. You can pick a warfare oriented country. Engineering tends to give you a lot of the interesting technology related things to do stuff, and diplomacy as well. You'll also see art and other things. Religion falls under the arts and structure in here. So if you want a theocracy and things like that, you can invest in those. And you could start out, with things like Mound Builders. And so just to give you a quick look at what it looks like from a what are the tech tree, if you will, inside of Mound Builders. They start out with this concept of a burial mound, and that burial mound gives you culture, it gives you improvement points, and I'll talk about how those work as we get into things. But also it sets you up to be able to add more things to the mound tradition. So again, very historical. I should have a whole historical video on the mound builders, because I think a lot of people aren't familiar with the mound civilizations. We're pretty familiar with Rome and Egypt and things like that. We don't tend to realize how important, these civilizations were, especially in the early days of how we formed civilization, how we think about things, particularly, burying our dead, things like that, or cremation, or different kinds of things like that. So anyway, these things, and each of these domains that you use to define your world, actually you'll notice use different kinds of mana resources, if you will, around these things. So this takes engineering resources. So when you amass engineering over here, that's what you use to actually progress as mound builders. So if you'd have picked a warfare-based civilization, you'd be using a warfare XP to be able to do that, which is activated by fighting battles and things like that. Whereas engineering XP is activated by building stuff and doing kinds of things, right? Exploration, same way. Exploration XP is put together by actually going out and doing other kinds of things. And each of these has a set of domain powers that are associated with them. And so when you generate enough of that XP related to stuff, you can activate, these powers whenever they're ready. Now, the kind of exception to this a little bit is government, because those domain powers are shared by pretty much everybody, except occasionally techs will give you particular kinds of things. So as I said, inside of Kingdom, for example, when you pick a particular government type, you're going to get a set of, powers that are associated with that particular government domain, and you can do them. So like this one, Conscript Immortals that you see down at the bottom, actually gives you 2 spear units at a vassal. So again, a kingdom kind of government is really about improving your vassals or building things on your vassals or taking things from your vassal, where like an imperial government would be much more based around building tall in a particular way, shape, or form. So as you go around and do things in the game, right, you're going to be doing the usual in the sense of, having relations with other countries that are near you. So let's take a look. Up here above us, we've got Rome chugging away up here. But, there's some interesting things going on at Rome here. It's actually I had gone up here to kind of pound on it a little bit. It's got a very high level of unrest going on up there because they've been at war with us for a very long time. In fact, I think I've offered peace like 5 times in so far in the game, and they just refuse. And so they keep throwing themselves against my walls down below. And you can see I've even taken back, one of their colonies that they'd put out there in Caesarea. Now, the other interesting thing in this game is outposts. So this happens to be an outpost that I built up here. And again, I'm not going to go through all the details because there's a ton of stuff in this game. For example, specializations and things for each of these. You can do all kinds of things to improve your ability to do stuff for each of the different types of cities and outposts and things that you have. And again, these are dependent a lot on the types of things that you pick. And I'm going to go through research in a second just to talk about how some of that works, as well as how do you actually build all these improvements. As you'll see, there's a lot around the different cities here. Now, we're in the Age of Plague. We're like 86 turns in, so this is still very, let's say end of early game, starting to move into the mid game. Eventually the next age will move us into the mid game, and I'll talk a little bit about ages in a second here too as well. Um, so we should talk about, kind of the ages, because I think those are really one of the fascinating things about how all of this works. So when you look, at things like, for example, research in the game, you're going to immediately see the age that you're in. I'm going to spend a second and go back to some other ages just so you can kind of see how those things work. So let's go all the way back to the beginning, to the beautiful age of stone where we started out. Now, what you can't see in this screen is the age choices that you have between each of these ages. So interestingly enough, there are all kinds of there's usually 3 or 4 choices between each of the ages, and some of those are what are called crisis ages, which is what we're in now with the age of plague, which I'll talk about how we got there in a sec. But also they have alternate ages that instead of just being the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, the Stone Age, etc., they're like cool steampunk ages, or they're the Age of Heroes, where you have mythological units that can run around and go on quests and things like that. So very different gameplay, that are enabled, and these things stay. So they become the history of your civilization as you go through things. So instead of going into the Iron Age, you go into the Age of Heroes or things like that. So there are a lot of great things, and we'll be looking at each of those. I'm thinking about kind of doing a video around each age to talk about some both strategies and just historically, how things worked and things around them. So if you take a look at the Age of Stone here, for example, just to start with, you're going to start out with different tools that you have to use, because as you pick each of these things, whether it's like tribal elders or defenses or scouting, and in this case, by the way, I've gone back and researched all of them, because even though you advance to other ages, you can always come back and pick these up, and they're a lot cheaper later as you go through things. So for example, right in the beginning, there are a lot of choices you need to make around if you're going to be more of a farming community or more of a military community, or some balance, between the two of those. So as you pick, things around things like scouting, you get access to different kinds of things. So you'll notice this one allows units to move through and towns to be built on jungle and deep forest. So terrain is obviously, mission critical to how we built civilizations, right? Whether we could build on the plains, or whether we could, have horses and or live in the mountains, right? Those are all different choices that you have to make. If you get a map with a lot of jungle, if you get a map with a lot of deep forests and things like that. Forests and all those things are actually hugely resource based too. In a lot of games, sometimes you have resources that pop up in various places and they're not directly terrain related, sometimes. But if you think about it, historically, geographically, how things really work, some of the greatest wealth, gold and things like that, comes out of some of the toughest terrain to deal with and stuff, which again deals with scarcity and all the economics of things like that. So in this game, those things are significantly interrelated. For example, forests in this game are extremely valuable resources because, and again, it depends on the map, where you end up and what you have to go do and conquer. And as with a lot of the newer games, resources are revealed as you go through the ages. So you don't always know where, everything from, coal and oil all the way up to, rare metals, are going to be revealed, rare earth minerals and things like that. And so in this game, making decisions around how you can navigate terrain, how you can do those kind of things, and whether you're going to be an exploration-based society or an engineering-based society or a warfare-based society, are all decisions you're making in every one of these ages, which is to me, the heart of what a great 4X game should be. Sometimes 4X games tend to lean towards more to combat or to more towards, exploration or things like that. This one really lets you pick. You can decide, and you have to take into account your start positions and your neighbors, just like anyone would in the old days trying to figure this out. So super exciting, as you go through these. Again, in this video, I'm not going to go through all these other than just throw them up here. So if you want to pause and poke around them, I'm not going to call up every single thing in them, but I think you can generally get the idea of what these are. Now you'll notice that they also unlock a lot of different things. Like this one says unlocks crane, saw pit, kiln, and mill. Well, these are actually the improvements that you build inside your regions to support your cities. And we'll go take a look at those in a little bit. Let's just spin up to where I am right this minute. So where I am right this minute is we're actually I'm still in the Age of Iron in my actual character that's out there, but the Age of Plague, one of the countries, America, has made it into the Age of Plague. Now, this is a crisis age, which means this is a nasty place. So, for example, when America entered the Age of Plague, all of my citizens were immediately released down. My pops were released down, brought down to 67%. So from 100% to 67% across all of my regions. So basically, plague hit the world. The Black Plague came and did that. And that happened because America didn't have enough sanitation in things. Sanitation's one of the growth resources that you manage to manage your reasons alongside food and housing. So sanitation's the third one that pops up. Every age, as you advance through things, adds another need for your people. And we'll look at that when we get a second. Here I am trying to make short video and all, and then we'll look at this. So again, lots of great features in this game. So as you do things. So what I'm actually doing right now, before I leap forward and go do those kind of things. So right now I'm building construction. Normally, I only need 3 to move into the next age. In this case, I've taken time to go ahead and research another one before I jump into the age, because we're already in the Age of Plague. I know I'm going into it, so I'm trying to get enough tech, that I think I need to do the right things, going forward. And then once I finish research on construction here, we'll kick off our moving into the Age of Plague. The other thing that happens is more text that I research make it faster to actually transition into the next age. And my research isn't super great yet because I've been spending a lot of time on other stuff, but particularly because my civilization is based on engineering, it's taken me a while to build up my research. So again, not going to really play the game in the sense of what I'm doing. I just want to talk to everybody about kind of the different parts of the interface and how things get done. There are lots of notes up here, so it'll tell you right during these ages what's going on. So as you can see, a great plague is struck, reducing population down to 67%. The next one over here will basically tell us that outbreaks will appear on your improvements. So the other thing that happens is you have specialized units and things that happen in these different ages. And so, for instance, in this particular age, I got, a different unit, in this case, a plague doctor that actually is available to help solve these outbreaks. Now, I was looking around to see if I have any outbreaks right this second. I don't think I do because I fixed them, but this happens to be a unit, right? This is a special unit. In this case, this is a plague doctor. It'll tell you the type of unit. It's a non-combat unit that's in here. Units have health and movements and upkeep. He's very expensive at 3 wealth, at least expensive for this age. But also these different units have the ability to help with unrest in different areas. Now, my people are pretty happy, so I don't have a lot of unrest going on with different things. And you can see what these units are doing with a little text on them and that kind of thing. You can also click on them and go straight to the infopedia. So his job is whenever outbreak happens on any of my improvements. So for example, there was one down on one of my farms. He went down there and actually used his one of his powers. So if you look at him, he has different powers like cleanse, right? So he can cleanse that outbreak. Now, there's a couple of different ways. You can also use some of your points over here to do things. And you'll notice these things pop up. Like you'll see this little 2 over here. That means usually a couple of my domain powers are available. And the way these work is like reinforcements, for example. Let's say that I had an army that was damaged, right, from somewhere. I can actually spend warfare XP to heal up that army's health and morale. Morale is important in the game as well, so units can break and not only not just be destroyed, but they can break, run away, those kinds of things, which I think, again, is a good mechanic in the way things work. So each of these different domains, have different domain powers that you can do things in. One other one that you're going to see is going on is I've got a prospector out here. Well, this prospector is actually running around looking for gold in the hills, and in fact, he actually found some. He was actually down here a while ago, and now you can see that I've got a quarry, working that particular area down here, and you can see that there's actually some gold that we found, down in that area. You can't just see gold on the map. You have to prospect for it and go look for it, which again, fascinating added mechanic. There are lots of little mechanics like this, like the things around the plague doctors, around these things that add a lot of flavor to each of the ages that you're going through. So there's a lot of diversity. And by the way, like in this playthrough, I haven't had a special age, right? So I've been going through kind of a traditional history line all the way up to where we are in the Age of Plague here. So let's just take another minute to talk a little bit about some of the other fun stuff that's in here, like innovation. So up here in the top, you can see both your wealth. So you can see kind of how you do wealth. You can see how much your units cost around here. And there are lots of things that impact wealth, particularly as you get further along in the ages. Now, on the innovation side of things here, where we are now, innovation is interesting because this also changes the trajectory of your nation. So what will happen is when you generate enough innovation, and there are lots of ways to generate innovation and things that do stuff around innovation. Also, being the first to enter an age is really one of the driving ways to get innovation up. But when this happens, right? You have a likelihood of getting an innovation event. Now, these events can be significant, huge. Like if you're on a warlike path, they can do things like making your units, much more feared and things like that, which increases your unit stats for your warriors or your raiders if you're a raider civilization. If, like me, you're a mound builder, I actually had that happen. One of my innovation events when I went in here actually changed the nature of things around my burial mounds. You'll notice here that it says to culture and then it says multi-level terrace buff, right? Well, what that did was that was an innovation event that immediately added one improvement point to every burial mound that I create, which at the early point of the game, you're only getting a couple of innovation points to begin with. So getting an extra improvement point on something that you do in there, which are basically how you build buildings. I'll talk about those in a second. These are all your improvement points. So being able to generate one more point around for each of those buildings. This, by the way, is a burial mound right here, just to give you an example of what one of them looks like. I think we can zoom in and see it. By the way, for people that complain about the graphics, I don't think they ever zoom in either. These are great graphics. I mean, look, are these Hollywood production era graphics? But no. But look, in the Bronze Age, this is not a bad ziggurat, in terms of how they structurally do things. And so for all of the criticisms that I keep hearing around things saying, oh, the units could be better, whatever, I think Potato McWhiskey put it best. He said, look, this could have just been a 2D game, and I would be just as happy, with it. And while I won't go quite that far, I do like having the 3D graphics and the 3D ability to rotate and everything else that we have now in the modern age. You know, it is true that that these graphics are good enough, right? I mean, which would you rather have? Great gameplay, and let's face it, we play these games because of the complexity of the game and the ability to do complex things and manage complex things, not because we need the graphics of God of War or something like that when we're engaged in those kind of immersive games. And so again, is it clean enough? Can we find enough? Is it understandable enough? Does it represent so we can look on the screen and see things? Yeah, yeah, it does. It does fine. I mean, does this look like a clay pit to you? Looks like a clay pit to me. I don't know. Are they doing a good enough job? Can you see where your workers are working? Right? Can you see when you got a plague doctor in there? Sure, it's got a dot right here that tells me somebody's working this space, right? Which is basically running the mill. So, again, I feel like I'm reacting, I think, to a lot of negativity I've seen out there around graphics and stuff, which again, I think it's a lot of people aren't, nowadays there's a rush to get reviews out, to get comments out, to get your latest video up, to do these kind of things. And so, it's hard in the first week of launch, for a game for anybody to be able to say things about, whether it's a good or bad game. So that being said, because I said this was going to be a short video and it's been pretty long, I've been trying to show everybody different kinds of parts of things. I know I haven't gone through the units and how they work and how wonderful crossbows are, or what different buffs get applied, or everything else, or how all the things like outposts and everything work. But I just wanted to get this video out there and be able to kind of give people my perspective on what I think is a great game. Is it in my top 100 games of all time? I have no idea. I haven't even had enough time to even begin to play it yet. Is it enough to keep me playing? Absolutely. I haven't even made it to the end of a game yet. So yeah, I know I'm a plotter. I like to go through and do everything, especially in the early game plays. I want to check out multiple choices and try and figure out, how all the pieces work. So I probably am not very efficient. I'm wasting a lot of time. But the great thing is when you get to waste time in a game, that means you're interested in it. That means you have interesting choices to make. You have interesting thoughts to make. You have to do things. So short answer, quick review answer is definitely worth your time, at the cost of this, $40 US, hey man, what else are you going to do for 40 bucks? So if you're a 4X lover or a strategy lover, you're going to like it. If you've never played a 4X game, is this a 4X game to start with? Yeah, maybe not. It's better probably to go start with Civ. Not only is there, a lot more maturity in the Civ franchise in the sense of how they do things from a user experience standpoint and a training standpoint and tutorials and everything. But of course, it runs on a wide variety of platforms and everything else. This is, Windows only at the moment, or in this case, I'm actually playing it in Parallels on a Mac. So if you're a Mac user, it runs great in Parallels. Yeah, it's not as fast as if it was running on my 4090 or any of those kind of things, but it's acceptable in terms of that. And I've tested it also in GeForce Now, so it works great in GeForce Now if you're a GeForce Now user on the Mac. So or on whatever platform you're on using GeForce Now, you can definitely access it. As usual with 4X games, there's a lot of optimizations that could still be done. I've seen several people playing in later ages that, there's some slowdowns, as you get more units and stuff on the map, as to be expected. But, that's true of every 4X game. Even Civ 6 now, at higher age limits, it's going to slow down. But again, short answer, looks like a great start out of the gate. If you love 4X games, this will be fascinating in terms of different kinds of gameplay. It's not the same old thing. And I look forward to hearing everybody's comments down below about if you've looked at it, if you've liked it. I'm pretty sure the demo's still up on Steam, I think. So you can even go play the demo of a previous version, not the final version, but it still gives you a good idea of the gameplay and things like that. So you can check it out and don't even need to spend any money to see if you like it or not. So let me know, more videos coming. Let me know if you want more videos, or let me know if you want to see a particular thing or understand a particular aspect of the game. I'd love to chat about it some more. Thanks and have a fabulous day.